Files. This month, we're talking about something most MSPs only pay attention to once it's already gone. Retention. And not the fluffy version, not Pizza Fridays or how do we stop people leaving. We're talking about how retention is designed, how it's shaped in hiring, how it's protected in the gap between offer and day one, how it's strengthened or weakened in the first 90 days, and how the smallest behavioural signals tell you who will stick around and who won't. If you're growing, if you're hiring ahead of Q2, if you're tired of replacing the same roles over and over, well, this month is for you. So let's get into it. Let me start with something that might feel slightly uncomfortable. If someone leaves your MSP at month 3 or month 5 or just after probation, they probably didn't leave then. They left at interview. The resignation just took a few months to catch up with the decision. Now stay with me, because this isn't about blaming those people, those candidates. It's about, and it's not about, should I say, criticising growth. And it's not about pretending MSP life is easy. It's about understanding where retention is actually shaped. And if you understand where it's shaped, you regain control of it. We call it early churn, but most churn is not early. It's delayed. Delayed misalignment, delayed disappointment, delayed realization. What we experience as sudden resignation is often the final step of a process that started much earlier. And that process, well, it begins in a room where everyone feels optimistic. The interview. Here's the thing. Most MSPs hire from other MSPs. So we comfort ourselves with this. They know what MSP life is like. And yeah, that's true. They understand tickets, they understand SLAs, they understand escalations, they understand reactive environments. But here's what they don't automatically understand. Your MSP life, your pace, your leadership tone, your internal alignment, your escalation style, your version of calm under pressure. No two MSPs feel the same operationally. And retention lives in the nuance. Nuance. So let's say someone comes from a structured MSP. Clear L1 to L3 boundaries, defined project handovers, formal client comms, escalation with guardrails. And then they join yours, where L2 sometimes absorbs L1 overflow, where directors occasionally message engineers directly, where client urgency overrides process, where growth is happening fast. You see, neither is wrong, but they are different. If that difference is not made explicit in hiring, candidates fill the gap with assumption. And assumption, well, that's dangerous. Because when reality diverges from assumption, trust wobbles and retention always follows trust. There is a silent contract formed in hiring. It's not about salary, it's not about holidays, it's about feel. What will it feel like to work here? That question is being answered in every interview through how you speak, how you describe problems, when you respond to challenge, how aligned your interview panel is, how you talk about pressure. If your answers are polished but reality is messy, the contract is miswritten. If your tone is calm, but operations are reactive, the contract is miswritten. If you promise structure but you operate on urgency, the contract is miswritten. And once someone realizes the contract doesn't match the lived experience, disengagement begins, not loudly, but quietly. You see, most MSP leaders are optimistic. You believe in your growth, you believe in your team, you believe in your opportunity. So when you describe the role, you naturally lean into the positive. And that's human. But here's the trap. We often soften the hard edges. We say, well, it can be busy. There's a lot going on. It's fast-paced. Instead of, we're scaling and still refining process. Our biggest client escalates quickly. Some weeks are very reactive, and decision-making can move fast. You see, the right candidate will not run from honesty. They'll lean into it. The wrong candidate, well, they will quietly withdraw. And that is not a loss, that's filtration. Retention improves when filtration improves. So let's go deeper. Because even in MSP to MSP hiring, behaviour matters more than experience. When you ask an interview, tell me about a difficult period at your last MSP, listen for ownership. Do they say they were disorganised, they didn't support me, the management was chaotic? Or do they say it was challenging, I struggled at first, but I adapted? You see, both can describe chaos, but one shows resilience. The other shows, blame orientation. And blame orientation rarely survives MSP pressure long term. Resilience does. Retention is not about how someone performs in calm conditions. It's about how they metabolize pressure when I get my words out. There's a question most MSP leaders avoid asking. And I'm talking about asking in an interview. And that question is, what frustrates you most in an MSP environment? And the reason why MSP leaders avoid it is because it might open a can of worms. But the answer is gold. If someone says, I hate unclear escalation, I struggle when priorities shift constantly, I find it hard when leadership changes direction quickly, and your environment includes those realities, you have a decision to make. Ignore the signal because you need capacity, or address it honestly and test alignment. Most churn is created when urgency overrides alignment. Now, your hiring process is not nor neutral. It's it's a preview, basically. If your internal team contradict each other in interview, candidates assume, misalignment. If interview stages shift unpredictably, candidates assume reactive decision-making. If communication drops after offer, candidates assume busyness overrides structure. You see, these are small signals, but engineers coming from other MSPs are hypersensitive to them. Why? Because most of them are not leaving MSP life. They are actually leaving instability. So when they detect instability early, they're going to clock it, even if they say yes. Let's be honest. There are moments when you hire because you need someone, not because alignment is perfect. Delivery pressure is high, the team is stretched, clients are demanding. So you accelerate. You overlook subtle behavioural friction. You gloss over small mistakes and mismatches. You think, well, they'll settle. And sometimes they do, but often they don't. Because pressure plus misalignment always equals churn. And churn costs more than waiting for alignment. So next I want to talk to you about the first 30 days and why, reinforcement of them. So by the time someone joins, they already have a narrative about your leadership, about your structure, about your rhythm. Day one does not create that narrative. It confirms or it challenges it. If week one matches interview energy, trust strengthens. If week one feels different, well, trust weakens. Retention is cumulative, not reactive. Here's what early leavers often think quietly. This feels more chaotic than I expected. I thought there'd be clearer boundaries. I assumed decision-making would be calmer. I didn't realise how fluid responsibilities were. See, these are not dramatic complaints. They are slow burn doubts. And slow burn doubts create slow burn exits. But by the time they resign, the decision feels obvious to them. But it feels sudden to you. If you truly want to reduce churn, I strongly advise you do this exercise. Think about the last 3 leavers you had. Replay their interviews in your head. Were there subtle signals? Perhaps hesitation around process? Perhaps preference for a rigid process? Sensitivity to shifting priorities? Overemphasis on structure? Did you override those signals because you needed capacity? If the answer's yes, that's not failure, it's awareness. And awareness gives you leverage. Retention stabilizes when you design alignment intentionally. That means being explicit about your escalation style, being honest about growth pressure, being clear about boundaries, being aligned internally before interview. It also means asking tougher behavioural questions, not to interrogate, but to understand their coping style. Because MSPs, as you know, are high stimulus environments, and people who thrive in them show early indicators. You just have to slow down enough to see them. Here's a shift I want you to make. Stop asking, how do we stop people leaving? And start asking, how do we show our real operating model clearly before they joined? Because the goal is not to convince someone to accept. The goal is to ensure the right people accept. And when your hiring becomes a transparent preview rather than a persuasive pitch, churn reduces naturally. They didn't leave at month 3. They left when they realised the psychological contract that they formed at interview didn't match reality. That doesn't make them weak. It makes, alignment incomplete. And retention is it's not luck. It's the byproduct of clarity, behavioural fit, and leadership consistency. And the earlier you design for it, the calmer your growth becomes. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. Retention is not reactive. It's not something you fix after someone resigns. It's designed in hiring, in communication, in ownership, in rhythm. And the MSPs who feel stable are not lucky. They plan differently. They hire intentionally. They protect the gap. They own the first 90 days. They pay attention to behavioural fit. If you're looking at Q2 and thinking we need to grow, but we need to grow without chaos, then start here. Start with structure. Start with clarity. Start before urgency forces your hand. As always, if this sparks something for you, share it with another MSP leader who's building properly. Until next time, design your hiring, protect your retention, and as always, stay wild.